Manuel Francisco dos Santos, better known as Garrincha, was born on October 28, 1933, in the city of Pau Grande, in Magé, Rio de Janeiro. His story begins in a small community, where life's difficulties didn't stop him from dreaming big. The boy who would become one of the greatest icons of world football was born in a setting marked by poverty, but also by an unwavering strength to overcome challenges. Garrincha grew up in a humble family. The son of a laborer and a housewife, he lived in an environment where football was an escape, a passion that spanned generations. Even as a child, his name began to stand out, but not for the extraordinary talent that would take him to some of the most renowned football fields in the world. Instead, it was due to the struggles he would face throughout his life. Garrincha was not born with a physical build that was favorable to sports. The deformity in his legs, with one limb crooked and the other slightly shorter, could have been seen as an insurmountable obstacle. However, what many viewed as a limitation, Garrincha turned into one of his greatest assets. He grew up with these physical peculiarities, which never hindered his development. In fact, they gave him a unique, almost inimitable style that would become his trademark in football. Still very young, he developed a passionate relationship with the ball. From his first steps, Garrincha found his own way to play, dribbling and dodging with a peculiar style. While other boys took pride in their skills on improvised football fields, he, with his irreverent personality and wide smile, stood out for a rare and authentic gift. Garrincha's childhood was filled with challenges, but also moments of pure magic and freedom on the streets and fields of Pau Grande. It was there, playing barefoot in the mud and dust, that he laid the foundation for what would become a brilliant career, never imagining the impact he would have on the world of football. Garrincha's story is, without a doubt, a true lesson in overcoming adversity, but also a testament to the idea that talent doesn't choose its body or origin. The beginning of Garrincha's football career, Garrincha's start in football was a story of perseverance and chance. Although the difficulties of his childhood and his physical limitations raised doubts about his future in the sport, it was in the streets of Pau Grande that he took his first steps toward glory. His natural talent was undeniable, but it was his passion for the game, along with a unique dribbling ability that caught the attention of those watching him in the improvised matches. At the age of 16, already known in the neighborhood for his dazzling moves and unusual style, Garrincha was invited to play for a local team, Pau Grande Futebol Clube. There, he began to gain confidence and refine his technique, even though many still looked at him with skepticism. After all, his crooked legs and the sideways way he ran due to the deformities were not exactly a model of athletic perfection. But for those who watched closely, it was clear that there was something special about his peculiar way of playing. It was in a game with the Pau Grande team that fate, combined with talent, made its appearance. The famous coach of Botafogo, known for his sharp observations, was in the crowd and noticed the boy with crooked legs. Defying expectations, the young Garrincha seemed to fly across the field, leaving opponents stunned with his dribbling skills and unusual speed. Impressed by the boy's talent, the coach made sure to invite him for a trial at Botafogo, one of the biggest clubs in Rio de Janeiro. Garrincha, who until then had been playing without much expectation, saw his life take a different turn at that moment. Even without the most favorable physical conditions, his ball control, surprising skill, and audacity in dribbling made an unforgettable first impression on the coaching staff. In the trial, he showed that his authenticity wasn't limited to his appearance, but was expressed in every movement, every dribble, that the opponents often couldn't keep up with. After being accepted, Garrincha began his professional career, and Brazilian football soon discovered that the boy from Pau Grande was not just a promise. He was about to revolutionize the game with his unique ability, which combined technique, courage, and a touch of magic that would captivate the fields for decades. Thus, the young man who had started playing in the streets of his small town, with a peculiar and almost unique style, was now ready to shine on the greatest stages of world football. The teams Garrincha played for. Garrincha's journey in professional football was not only marked by his unique talent, but also by the clubs where he made history, leaving a legacy that endures to this day. His name is inseparable from some of the greatest institutions in Brazilian football, and his time at these teams was marked by victories, legends, and unwavering loyalty. The first major step in Garrincha's career was at Botafogo, the club that would become his home for much of his journey. When he was signed in 1953, the young prodigy from the streets of Pau Grande found the perfect stage to showcase his talent. At Botafogo, he not only won titles but also became the team's great symbol alongside other stars like Nilton Santos and Zagallo. His dribbling skills and unpredictable plays captivated the Alvinegra, black and white fan base, and made him one of the greatest idols in the club's history. With Botafogo, Garrincha stood out in both national and international competitions, and the fans fell in love with his magical moves that seemed to defy the laws of physics. But Garrincha's destiny was not limited to Botafogo. In 1966, after a turbulent period at the club and some personal issues, he was loaned to Flamengo, Botafogo's historic rival. Although his time with the red and black team was brief, it was marked by a historic feat, a victory against his former club, Botafogo, in the 1966 Campeonato Carioca, Rio de Janeiro State Championship. Despite his relatively short stay, Garrincha took the opportunity to showcase his genius and continued to captivate the fans with his technique and vision of the game. Garrincha's final major chapter was with the most unexpected club of his career, Olaria. At 34, already marked by injuries and the wear of a brilliant career, he spent some time playing for the club in the north zone of Rio de Janeiro. Although his time there wasn't filled with titles, it was where he had the chance to demonstrate his determination and love for football, even while facing physical limitations. Garrincha was no longer the young prodigy he once was, but he still possessed a touch of magic that the fans never forgot. These clubs were the pillars of a career that transcended generations. Garrincha didn't just play football, he transformed every game into a magical performance, whether at Botafogo, Flamengo, or Olaria. His passes, dribbles, and vision of the game went beyond any shirt he wore. He was more than just a player, he was a legend, and his time at these clubs helped cement his name among the greatest football icons in Brazil and the world. Garrincha's time with the Brazilian national team. Garrincha's story with the Brazilian national team is undoubtedly one of the most brilliant and remarkable in world football. When discussing the Brazilian national team and its glories in the World Cups, Garrincha's name appears alongside the greatest players, becoming a legend not only for his unique ability, but also for the way he led Brazil to epic victories. His debut with the Brazilian national team happened in 1955, but it was in the 1958 World Cup in Sweden that he solidified his status as a global football icon. Even playing alongside other stars like Pelé, Garrincha stood out in an impressive way. His ball control, his bewildering dribbles, and his ability to make the opposing defense seem irrelevant captivated the world. He was the key figure in Brazil's victory in that World Cup, with memorable performances, especially in the quarterfinals against France, where his creative and irreverent play helped secure Brazil's spot in the final. In the 1962 World Cup in Chile, Garrincha reached the peak of his international career. Although Brazil lost Pelé to injury early in the group stage, Garrincha took on the role of the team's leader without hesitation. His enchanting and unpredictable football left no doubt he was the driving force of the team. With him on the field, Brazil won its second consecutive World Cup in brilliant fashion, defeating strong teams like Czechoslovakia and the Soviet Union. The final against Czechoslovakia, where Garrincha shone once again, became forever etched in the history of the sport. But Garrincha was not just a player of technical talent. His presence in the Brazilian national team also reflected his unique, captivating, and charismatic personality. Off the field, he won everyone over with his simple and sincere demeanor, becoming not only an idol, but a symbol of identification for the Brazilian people. His laid-back attitude, easy laugh, and humility made him beloved by all, both on and off the pitch. Garrincha's relationship with the Brazilian national team was, therefore, not only a journey of victories and titles, but a true story of love and dedication to football. His story is intertwined with the greatest moments in the history of the Brazilian national team, especially in the 1958 and 1962 World Cups. With his bewildering dribbles, his magic with the ball, and his unparalleled talent, Garrincha became an immortal figure in football history, Remembered as one of the greatest players ever to wear the Brazilian national team's jersey, and without a doubt, one of the greatest of all time. The end of Garrincha's career. The end of Garrincha's career was, like many aspects of his life, tragic and far from the glory he deserved. Considered one of the greatest football stars in history, his journey on the field, unfortunately, did not end with the dignified closure his talent had earned. After triumphs in the 1958 and 1962 World Cups, Garrincha's life, which seemed destined for eternity in football, began to unravel. Personal problems, such as his struggle with alcoholism and the loss of his physical abilities, caused his career to decline. His knees, which had accompanied him through pain and difficulty throughout his career, began to show clear signs that the end was near. His chronic joint injury, worsened by a lack of care, soon took its toll. Garrincha played for several clubs after his time with the national team, but he was no longer the captivating player he once was. In 1966, after a season at Botafogo, where he made history, he transferred to Corinthians. However, his time there was marked by football far removed from the brilliance that had once enchanted Brazil. His lack of form and off-field issues began to weigh heavily, and the club could not find a place for the idol. In 1969, Garrincha played his final professional match, no longer in his former glory, and after that, football left him. Brazil lost its angel with crooked legs, but the icon Garrincha remained alive in the memories of the Brazilian people. However, the suffering of the former player was not limited to the football pitch. The end of his career also brought great personal loneliness, a bitter reflection on his life after football, and an internal struggle that seemed impossible to overcome. Garrincha never fully found emotional rehabilitation after his career ended. The frustrations of not being able to stay in the sport he loved, combined with his addiction problems, pushed him away from public life and football activity. He never achieved the triumphant return that many had hoped for, and his early death in 1983, at the age of 49, reflected the tragedy of a man who, despite all his achievements, did not find peace at the end of his sporting journey. The end of Garrincha's career, therefore, is a portrait of pain and a constant struggle against his own limitations. The man who enchanted the world with his magical and unforgettable football, a true icon of the Brazilian national team, was forced to say goodbye to the field in a melancholy manner, far from the spotlight and the reverence that his talent deserved. Personal problems and controversies, Garrincha, the angel with crooked legs, is remembered not only for his extraordinary talent on the field, but also for the complexity of his personal life, marked by a series of problems and controversies that cast a shadow over his career and journey. Off the field, the idol faced immense challenges that often overshadowed the image of the genius player and burdened him with a heavy load that was difficult to bear. The problems began to intensify shortly after the peak of his career. Garrincha struggled with alcoholism, an addiction that would become a tragic mark in his life. He was often seen in embarrassing situations, with impulsive behavior and erratic actions, something that contrasted with the heroic figure he was to the Brazilian people. Alcohol not only affected his personal life, but also interfered with his professional performance, contributing to the early decline of his career. His relationship with the media was also turbulent. Often portrayed in contradictory ways, Garrincha was treated both as a national hero and a problematic figure. The press, which once adored him as one of Brazil's greatest football stars, began to expose his flaws relentlessly, which only deepened his loneliness and anguish. He had little patience for the pressure of the spotlight, and over time distanced himself from public opinion, trying to escape the criticisms surrounding him. In addition, his love life was marked by controversies. Garrincha had several marriages and relationships, some of which sparked discussions and scandals. The most famous was his relationship with singer Elza Soares, whom he married in 1966. The union was tumultuous, with episodes of infidelity, public disputes, and personal issues that reflected on Garrincha's professional life. The relationship with Elza, which was always marked by ups and downs, led many to question his emotional stability and the choices he made, both off the field and on it. These personal problems culminated in Garrincha's final departure from the spotlight. The man who was once seen as one of football's greatest idols slowly became a misunderstood man, surrounded by personal tragedies and controversies that took him further away from the brilliance of his youth. What remained was a fragmented image of a man who, despite his genius in football, never managed to find balance in his personal life. Death of Garrincha and legacy. The death of Garrincha on January 20th, 1983, marked the end of an era for Brazilian football, but also the beginning of a deep reflection on the legacy he left. The angel with crooked legs, the man who enchanted the world with his unique and irreverent skill on the field, passed away at 49, a victim of complications from health problems aggravated by alcoholism and the personal struggles that marked the final years of his life. His death was mourned by millions of Brazilians who saw in him not just a great player, but a symbol of the joy and flair that always characterized Brazilian football. Garrincha's death was surrounded by sadness and a sense that Brazilian football had lost one of its greatest icons, but it also sparked a wave of reflection on what he truly meant for the history of the sport. The impact of his passing was immense, but it wasn't limited to the tears of his fans. His legacy, however, transcended the field. His story, filled with ups and downs, became a metaphor for struggle, overcoming adversity, and the complexity of human life. Brazilian football never forgot the importance of Garrincha in the development of the game. Alongside Pelé, he was one of the major figures responsible for Brazil's rise as a global football powerhouse, especially in the 1960s. With his impressive skill and bewildering dribbles, Garrincha helped the Brazilian national team win 2 World Cups in 1958 and 1962. His role as a key figure in the victories in the World Cups became immortalized, and his ability to transform the game with his lightness and magic continues to inspire players today. Despite his premature death, Garrincha's legacy lives on, not just in statistics, but in the hearts of Brazilians. He is remembered as a symbol of perseverance, joy, and skill that transcended personal difficulties and was passed down through generations. New generations of football players, even without having seen Garrincha in action, continue to hear stories about his magical plays and his genius with the ball at his feet. His name, associated with football art, creativity, and the beauty of the game, has never been erased. And instead of being remembered only for his problems and controversies, Garrincha's memory, in its essence, is marked as that of one of the greatest icons of world sport, someone who represented, like few others, the spirit of a country passionate about football and who always believed that, above all, the game should be a celebration, a party. In this video, we explored the journey of Garrincha, a football genius who captivated the world with his talent, but also faced significant personal challenges. Subscribe to the Brazilian National Football Team Forever channel to follow the glorious past of the Brazilian national team, the players who made history, and the latest updates on a team that continues to captivate the world. See you in the next video.